Bam.
I'm Luke Wygodny, and you're the Break It Down Show.
That's right, the Break It Down Show. We get to do a lot of cool stuff around here. I got invited by a friend to go watch a live reading. So not a full performance, but basically a full performance of a play called Crazy Mama that is just about to go into full production. They're still doing some, I guess you call them dress rehearsals, but live readings with an actress who very, very, very successful named Carolyn Hennesy. And the play is called Crazy Mama. And in Crazy Mama, it's one lady and one dude. And the dude is this guy right here. This guy right here, Luke, who plays the guitar as a form of accompaniment and kind of transition throughout the event. So I wanted to have Luke on the show because it's an interesting, one act plays where you're playing several different people. It's a high wire act, right? And you're there, Luke. When they pitch you on this, what are your thoughts on what you bring artistically? Because you're not just playing the guitar, like you have a different role in this, but we're never looking at you, like except for when you're playing. Maybe we're looking at you as Carolyn is transitioning into whatever the next portion of the event is. But what's the pitch to you as an artist?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. It was so cool meeting you in LA, and we immediately connected. Thank you. I think the thing that excited me about this piece and other pieces that I've worked on here in New York, I've always straddled this in between being a singer-songwriter with my band and then also being an actor. I originally moved to New York for theater and keeping that separate from my band stuff. I love just acting in roles, and I also love having my band and touring with my folk band. This beautiful sandwich of having both, where in this piece and this last piece I did in New York, it's an amazing thing because it's not just being the musician, it's actually, for me, being a character on stage, providing the emotional life for her character in Crazy Mama. It's such a wild ride for her, and I think underneath her wild ride, the music kind of elevates this story emotionally. And I really love that aspect of it, that I'm not just in the pit, even though kudos to all musicians in pits and orchestras. It's a beautiful place, but I love this place in between where it's almost as if it's a character, but just no words. It's just through music.
Is there a dynamic between the two of you when you're on stage?
It's funny you ask. We just met. We had 2 days of rehearsal, not even. And then we did that reading. It was quick, but I felt right away when we met that Carolyn has this deep, deep soul that when you look at her on stage, I could tell that she has my back. And I told her before that I have yours. And I felt after that reading that, I can't wait for New York. I mean, it was almost a test for me of how it's going to be. It's such an intimate piece. I didn't want to step on her toes. I wanted to just make sure that I'm helping push the story along. And I felt this deep connection with her. This invisible, it was like an invisible thread in between us that I felt during that reading.
And that thread, is there a dynamic in that thread? I mean, as you two perform this thing more often, is there space for you two to communicate the story? I mean, as she learns the character, and look, she's a professional, she knows the lines and all. We're not talking about that, but as she explores the emotions thing, and like it's heavy. I mean, as she goes along, you're like, wow, this thing's really getting dark and heavy. Are you two learning the timing and the space of that, and is that communication going on? Is it verbal? Is it nonverbal? That part of the dynamic of the performance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's in there. We're gonna have a couple more days to rest when we're in New York. The show's coming to Bethel Woods in my area, in my spot now. It was nice that I got to hang with everyone in LA, and now they're coming to me. I live upstate as well, so we're gonna have a couple days to kind of figure out more musical moments. We're thinking I might actually my cello. I'm a cello player as well. Throw in some cello for certain moments, and yeah, I think that there's more moments for music. Not a lot. It shouldn't be over musical, but just a couple more, because there's these big chunks of speech and monologues, and I think in between breaking them up when we're on the road trip, when we're on all these different spaces, there could be music threading in and out, almost as if I want to write a theme for it. Different characters that she plays. She plays, I mean, different ages, from all the way from, young child to an adult and where she is right now. And I think that there could be themes that are hidden throughout the piece based on her evolution in her character. And we're still finding that.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're exploring that, is that you and her? Is that you and Anson? Is it you? Because there's the playwright as well. All these different people are involved in this. How does that communication work?
Well, this is an interesting project because usually I just did a show here in New York at the Roundabout the show called Primary Trust, which was an amazing experience. But we had a month of rehearsals, and this I had 2 days. And usually in the theater world, you have. I mean, I've done shows where it's been a week, but this is really quick. And also, we're only doing 3 shows at Bethel Woods, and so I think from how we spoke as a group, that less is more for this specific piece, that it should be about the text. It should be about Sharon's. I mean, her script is just so beautiful that I think putting too much music and too many lights and too many set pieces, like keeping it as simple as possible, a chair, Carolyn, me, a chair, and just the words telling this story, maybe like having lighting shifts. Anson was talking about lighting shifts as well. But like I said, if we had a month of rehearsals, we could really find these moments. But a part of me thinks it might be even better this way, that it's only 2 days, that you can't think too hard about it. You just have to go with your first gut impulse instead of having the hamster wheel go on and, second guessing yourself a million times. So looking for this quick, what works.
Yeah. And so everybody, it's the Bethel Woods. It's 12th, 13th, and 14th are the dates that I have. That there are 3 events, and it's the live read with Carolyn and Luke on stage. It's real stark. And so I had no idea what I was getting into. We did this at the. Okay, if you guys ever go to Hollywood and you're like, what do we do in Hollywood? We've done things. You got to go to the Hollywood Museum. It's fantastic. There are memories everywhere. Anyhow, we go up to the performance space up there, and look, I've had Carolyn on the show. I know she's a superstar. For those who don't remember Anson Williams, you would know him from Happy Days. And so there's all kinds of greatness in this. And Carolyn starts in this performance, and I'm like, okay, yeah, all right. And then you get deeper into it, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is not just a play. This is autobiographical. Like, this is a really deep and powerful thing, and you just get ensnared into this wonderful, wonderfully powerful life story. And boy, it pays off at the end. And it's just such a neat experience to go see these live performances. Anyhow, like we're still talking about coming out of COVID and everything, and AI is taking over our lives. But then you get to go see you and Carolyn do this magic thing, and just there's no need for anything that's not real. Like every note you're playing, you're actually playing. There's no robot. It's her emotions. It's your ability to convey that stuff. And it was just a beautiful performance. And I just felt so fortunate to bring a couple of friends and just have this experience that, it was fantastic. And really thank you for that, because it was great to see that.
Oh, thanks for saying that. I appreciate it. It felt really, I think good is not the word. I think vulnerable. I feel like the show felt like we were up there, and it felt very stripped down, and watching her kind of take the leap, almost like jumping off a cliff with this part, and being able to be next to her and feel that energy and ride off her breath. And that was special. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Well, it's always encouraging folks to get, it's easy to stay at home. It's easy to scroll. It's easy to, and there's times when I'm like, oh, you know what? I really just don't want to drive into Hollywood today. It isn't that hard, but I know that there are rewards when you go out and do that. And I got to bring some friends, and my buddies and I, we sat there and we were all like, yeah, we just got to keep remembering to go out and experience these things live. You mentioned the orchestra pit earlier. I go to see symphony and opera, and look, I'm saying these particular forms, any kind of live music. You're a cellist. If you go do a piece, whatever piece it is, my brain is going to go somewhere. Like, there's just magic in that vibration, and you sit with someone, and then at the end of it, you can ask them, where did you go during this thing? And it's like a meditation, and you're the person who guides us on this meditation, whether it's Mozart or something modern. We are going to go somewhere, and it's going to be so much better than anywhere on a couch that you can go. It's just it's a
Right.
magical thing. So I always encourage people to take these kind of journeys.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, that's why I think I went into music in the first place. My whole family, I grew up with instruments all throughout the house, and I band as well. I play with my brother, who sings with me, and my partner Marina, and we have cello and violin and drums and piano and a whole group of awesome players that are also in the theater. And it's just the only way for me, it's always been my outlet. It's always been my journal diary. And also whenever I see music, it's really the one thing that pulls me out of bed, especially in a time now. It's tricky because of all the screens. Like, I'm really happy to talk to you on here.
Yeah.
But if I'm scrolling, like, this is different for me. Like, I love communicating in this way, but with scrolling and everything and the noise and all the noise online these days, it's really just to go to a live show or see someone playing live and closing your eyes and just experiencing it in the moment. I just don't think there's anything better. And I don't think AI is going to ever fully take away gigs from singer-songwriters and musicians. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Well, and even in this format here, and this is great because you're in New York and I'm in California, we're able to communicate. But
Right.
even right now, I'm detecting there's a hitch in the communication. There's like a Wi-Fi split. Who knows, right? So I'm understanding every word you're saying, but it's not perfect. And if I had my druthers, we would have been able to do it face to face because it would be more rich and it would be better, right? But we have the ability to do this, and this is wonderful. And we have this conversation. But yeah, you're right. It's better face to face. And you communicating with that bow across that string or with your hand, and you might make a choice and you might pick up something, and you're like, you know what, I am going to do this. I am going to grab this capo because there is a choice here to make, and you can make something that you hadn't made before because of something that you feel, and you communicate, right? Because our response to what you're doing and your response to what we're giving you, there is a conversation, even if it's unspoken. And as you get better and better at what you do, we get better at communicating. It's just like this. It's a conversation,
Yeah, I one of my favorite players is James Taylor, and Livingston Taylor, his brother. I saw perform. He's also one of my favorites. I saw him perform in Evanston. I grew up in Evanston, Illinois, near Northwestern. There's this awesome venue called Space, and I remember having like a kind of hard night that night. I was in the back of our band played there as well. It's a great space. And he came up to me after the show. Livingston Taylor is walking up to me. I'm like sweating. I'm so nervous. And he said, I just want to tell you something. He didn't know music or anything. He said, I want to tell you something. When you're up there playing, the audience is just as much a therapist for you as you are for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then he walked away. And that was it. And I started crying. I was like, hold on. First of all, how did you know I was a musician? And second of all, just I needed to hear that, like, we're all in this together. It's no one's alone in this. I mean, the whole point of music is to share an experience, to connect, to take a vibration and let us transcend from this, bullshit, and it really felt good to hear. I forgot he said that until you mentioned that. Thanks for bringing that back into my consciousness.
Well, there's so many perspectives. I always think about like when you get too focused on your own thing. This is just Pete talking about Pete stuff, but then you realize there's different perspectives: your perspective, their perspective, our perspective, all of the introspection, respect, all of the specs, and then you can tell the story from a different angle. And I've been having conversations on X, Twitter, about Tracy Chapman's song "Fast Car," and what it means. And I'm going to be a little bit unfair to young people. They're like, people think this is a love song. I'm like, that's absolutely a love song. I used to work at Tower, and when you work at Tower, you are forced to deal with music at a level that is just higher because you've got musicians working there, and you've got just a lot of people, and so you can't just half-ass it. And so you've got to live with that song. When you've lived with that song and you think you know what it's about, someone else comes up, and these are people that know their music, and they're like, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And then the musician comes in and is like, did you know that this chord is in there? And you're like, no, what does that mean? And then you understand what this song is, and you're like, oh my God, there's 1,000 emotions in this song, and it goes over time. and you're just like, this is a love song, and you cannot limit what Tracy Chapman's song does. The second you think it's about one thing,
Right.
no, and that's
Well,
the
it's also,
beauty of her art. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm so passionate about that song. I mean, I watched the Grammys this year and I had a lot of thoughts about it, but the positive thoughts was when she played that song, I was so emotional because I remembered why I'm doing this. I'm like, I'm so happy I'm still doing this, because all it takes is one song. I mean, that song, it's just when the chords come out and she starts singing, it's like you're in another space. Also, when Joni played Both Sides Now, I love Joni Mitchell. She's one of my favorites. And the meaning of that song, how the meaning has changed over the years, and hearing her sing it now with also one of my favorites, Brandi Carlile, right next to her, and Jacob Collier on the piano. I mean, these are like brilliant minds, and it's just there's hope when I hear people like Joni and Tracy Chapman. Like, there's just still hope for, in my opinion, for good music and storytelling.
Yeah. In that, first off, the song before and the song after on Tracy's debut album, these are not songs that are written to be commercially successful. These are songs that have messages, and they are not easy to hear, and they challenge you, and they did not make her a lot of money. So the fact that she gets this lightning strike of this song, you're like, oh my God, what a wonderful gift that we've all been able to give her, this life where she gets to create and force us to deal with these things that we all are, and that's really like, for a folk performer who challenges us, and that's her job, is to go be uncomfortable, deal with who we are. And you're like, oh, I don't like this, and have that money come in so she can do that. That is, and I love that she was there. I was so glad that they had her there. And I want to go back to Fast Car now. When people think it's about an alcoholic boyfriend, it's like, there's kids in that song. Did you forget about those kids? And you never hear from the dude. He never speaks. He never answers the question that she throws at him. You don't know what happens. You don't know what the end is. You don't know. There's so much. She might be the problem. You have no idea, and it doesn't resolve, and it makes you uncomfortable. That's genius for Tracy. And the thing is like when she goes to that last chorus, she's recalling, she's remembering, and then she softens it maybe, and she throws the question to him for the first time. The pronoun changes from we to you.
Yes.
And he's got him. It's like, oh my God,
Brilliant.
because it changes the tone. So maybe she throws him out, but then she softens. She's like, we are stuck here. And she also has given up hope in that song for herself.
Right.
As soon as you cannot box her in. You can't box Tracy in. It's not possible.
No. And maybe that's the secret sauce of, like, everyone always asks me, like, when you write a song, like, did you write the lyrics first? Did you write this? Like, all of these questions that, like, maybe the secret sauce is exactly what you just said. You can't put her in a box. You can't, it just breaks open. And I think that's also from writing from the bare bones. Like, if you're writing from your truth completely, people will resonate with it. I really believe that. Maybe they won't like it, but they're still going to resonate with it. And Tracy, she writes from her. I mean, it's so obvious when artists write from their truth, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Sharon, and to bring it back to Tracy Mama, Sharon writes from her. I mean, that play and Anson kind of guiding her, and having this idea to make it a one-woman show. Because also when I was talking to them, I'm like, oh my God, it can be a film, or it can be that. I was popcorning all these ideas. But the fact that Anson decided, even though he has the ability to do all of these things, to keep it just about the words, I think is a brilliant idea. And also, this play can be done in so many. I was telling Carolyn as a joke, I'm like, after we do this in New York, there's going to be mini Carolyns all over the place in this show at all these different regional theaters, auditioning to bring. It's important. This should be done. This should be seen by high school and in all different places.
Yeah. It's really great. Sharon starts out very descriptive, and I honestly, like, and maybe I'm just a dope. I had no idea going in, and I love just kind of going in not knowing anything. When I went to go see U2 at the Sphere, I wanted to know nothing about any part of any. I love U2, but I just didn't want to know anything.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was getting into, and it's so descriptive. And I'm like, it's really descriptive. It's really descriptive. It's really. And then the emotion started coming in, and I'm like, oh, you tricky lady, you got me. I didn't know. I didn't know this was autobiographical. I see what's
Yeah.
happening now. And then, oh man, it got so. It just, she paid off so well. And that's the thing is like. I do not like when you take me on a ride and then you don't pay the bill at the end. I just,
Right.
and she did a great job, and Anson did a great job. You did a great job. Carolyn did a great job. It was so satisfying. It was so satisfying, and that's, I've been around a long time. I'm 54. I'm not the oldest guy in the world, but I've seen a lot of things. I've seen a lot of performances, and when you pay off like that, it just really. Anybody who wants to go, if you're anywhere near New York, there's the link down below. You guys should really go check this thing out. Or if it comes to your town, take the time to go see something great. It really is a fantastic performance. It was great. Crazy Mama. You got my thumbs up for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah. Another song that recently came to the news because Toby Keith passed away, and what a songwriter Toby Keith was.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Ridiculous. You dig into his he's huge, and then you dig into his catalog, and you're like, amazing. You don't even got to like Toby Keith, but you have to go, Christ, that guy writes songs. He wrote that song, "Don't Let the Old Man In," and then they give him this like achievement award in December. And who knew he was on Death's Door? And he sings it, and it's like Johnny Cash stealing "Hurt" from Trent Reznor.
Oh,
He's
man.
singing this song, and you're just like, and you didn't realize, like I had no idea. I'd missed that song altogether, and that song became a something different thing. And sometimes songs change, and he's like, yeah, that song arrived 4 years after I wrote it, and then it became a hit. But that song been around, but it became something else when I got sick. And boy, did it ever become something else. And then became even something else because then he died, shortly after that. And he's like, that song is a totally different animal now.
God, you just never know when something's going to hit. It goes back again to bringing up the screens and social media. And like everyone, I think nowadays wants it to be perfect because, it's about like instant gratification. It's about how many likes you're going to get right now, and then that happens. And then there's moments where it's like, if you just keep writing from your truth and throw that all, I'm telling myself this right now. I'm trying to guide myself in this direction, but just keep writing from truth and throwing out that instant gratification, and know that like at the end of the day, it's just about creating something beautiful, because who knows what's going to happen to you tomorrow? We don't know. But that's a wild story.
Yeah. And that looking at that perspective thing again, changing that pronoun, taking that phrase and twisting it and darkening it. Like I like to use the example of what's worse, a twist of fate or a fated twist.
Ooh.
And you think, oh man, that fated twist, like this was gonna happen no matter what you did, and you're just like, you play with that concept, or
sure.
you take an existing song that that happens and it's dark, like a good Johnny Cash song, and then you tell it from somebody else's perspective, and you can completely change what that song is, or put that song in somebody else's voice. Like one of my favorites is Frank Sinatra was going to sing "These Boots Are Made for Walking," and Nancy said, "No, Daddy, this song can't be sung by you. That would be cruel. I need to sing it." And he's like, "Okay, baby, you go sing it." And she sings it, and it's a hit. And you think about Frank singing it, you're like, "Ooh, that song's terrifying if you sing it,"
Yeah. That's so funny. We when I was in LA, Anson and Sharon, they took me to this spot. It's the Smoke Steakhouse. It was so fun. And like there's like a Frank Sinatra steak there. You know what I'm talking about? It's the Smokehouse.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Now I know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a good time. They had this cheese. Like Carolyn was like, yo, you got to get the cheesy bread. There's this cheesy bread that they give you in a basket. Anyway, they had this like Sinatra steak. That's what he used to order when he was there. And I grew up, listening to Frank Sinatra. So because you brought up Frank Sinatra, I could taste the steak from that night in LA. It's a good time.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a link up for that. That place is great. Here you go. If anybody goes there, these are like the little hidden spots. These are good things.
Yeah, it was fun.
When you write a song, how often do you write songs?
It depends. I get like these huge waves where I write a song. Like I turn on my phone, I turn on my recorder, and I just play the song, and then it sits on my phone for a while, and I listen back, and I'm like, oh my god, there's this. I don't have to change anything. Really, I don't have to change anything. And then the band will like listen to it and be like, yeah, I think we should change a couple things here, but it changes. I've spoken to writers who are like, yo, you can't wait for the muse. You can't wait for the inspiration. You got to just keep it consistent. Because I can go a long time and not write. But also projects push me to write. Even after Crazy Mama, just getting into the headspace of Sharon and Anson and Carolyn and that world opened up me writing my personal songs about that story, but it's not in the show. So kind of stepping in as an actor and doing other pieces has always, for me individually, enhanced my own songwriting. We're right shopping around for a producer. We're recording another album coming up, our band called the Heartstrings Project. And it's been cool, like over the years, just all the different sounds that we've gone through with folk, Americana, rock and roll, blues, bluegrass, a little bit of jazz. It's just fun. It's nice to kind of like break open the genre and just go off the storytelling aspect instead of trying to make it, like you said, in the box. But yeah, I'm kind of avoiding your question because I want to tell you that I write every day. That's the goal. But I get these spurts. And it's the best when it happens.
Yeah. I want to tell you that I write songs every day. I intend to, and I'm not a songwriter, but I love to write songs, and I am terrible at it. I also don't have the skills. I've never taken the time to develop the skill. I'm a failed songwriter, right? So I can absolutely write a song. I just don't know how to do it, right? And so I can come up with the melody. I'm really good at coming up with the chorus, but I can't put all the pieces together. So I can make a basket case. I'm like, I've got an idea for a song. Here's the concept. Here's the little hook. I can give you all the little, but I don't know how to make the whole song. And so that I may write the whole lyric, and I'm like, yeah, first pass out a lyric, that's a useful song, and then I never finish it because I don't know how to do it. And if I sat down and just learned how to do it, 16-year-old kids can write a song, but I don't know how to finish it. And so I'm a failed songwriter. But I enjoy doing it when I do it. It's fun.
I love that. Failed song. I think artist is finishing it. I mean, I feel like now that I'm not, writing songs I guess I still am subconsciously for attention. I mean, that never goes away. But like that feeling of writing songs as a younger, I always was in bands. I mean, my whole life, like when I was in middle school, I created a band. In high school, I created a band. I've been through so many different bands and punk rock and all of this stuff. But this whole thing of what it means to be a musician and tell stories, and Tracy and the Jonies and the Bob Dylans and the Cat Stevens and all these people that are telling their truth. It's like, I just don't think there's anything better. I don't like, and then that's when I met you in LA for that second after the show, and everyone was crowding around and it was crazy. I just, for like a second, I just felt this connection with you of, you really are passionate about music as well. Like I just felt this huge passion from you that I also feel. And I think it radiates. Like we kind of attract those type of people. It's cool that you write. It's cool that I've never heard what did you say? A songwriter,
a failed songwriter?
Yeah, songwriter. I love that. I love that as a song title. I want to write it.
Yeah.
A failed song.
Yeah. Well, like I'm not a musician, but I'm not a musician. I can play chords and everything. You like play a D minor. I can do that. Play E minor. I do that. Play C. I do that. All of a sudden you're like, you've just named off 25 chords. That's a musician, right? But I'm not a musician for real. I can play the harmonica. Play this line. I'll play that. Like solo on something. Like I'll probably not do that. But you're describing a musician, right? Write a song, Pete. Okay, here, I'll need some help. Oh yeah, sure. We'll write this together. That's a musician, right? But I'm not a musician, and so like there's this like space where like it's like a comedian. I'm a funny guy. I can go on stage. I can tell some jokes. I'd probably suck at it, right? But at some point, like yeah, you know what? You're kind of a comedian. And so you have these things where you can create stuff. And so I
Yeah.
can write a song, or I could, stand on stage and I could act a little bit, but I'm not an actor. And so you have these choices you make in your life where you get to be something. So sure, I can play the guitar a little bit, and maybe I can sing in key with what I'm playing. But maybe not. If I practiced, I'd be fine at that. But I don't have the wherewithal or desire to like stay on that path. And so I do things like I talk to people professionally, and that's what I'm really good at.
Right. Well, I was gonna say, the artist and musician is just as important. I mean, I feel like your energy is even more important, breaking down music from that perspective and not looking at it like, candy in a candy wrapper. Like you dissect it, which is so cool. I think that's the coolest part about music, is talking about the dissection, like pulling it apart and trying to kind of analyze the thought process of the story. And that's more of an artist sometimes, in my opinion, the way you explore it, than some guitar players that show up to a band. Like I played with some people too that are really, really, really good. Like
Yeah.
new, but they're all over the place. It's like they're not breathing into it. They're not exploring it from the space. That they're almost trying. It's almost like they're playing from their ego, opposed to their ego self, opposed to their self, and they're not listening. And there's players like that, and then there's people like you, like that, are analyzing and taking a breath and processing. And you really also heard Crazy Mama. I mean, you obviously heard Tracy's song too. It's not to say that other people don't have the right way of analyzing or anything like that. It's just nice to talk to someone who takes the time to appreciate music from that angle.
There is something to that where you have a developed ear. My dad was a musician. He
Oh,
and
cool.
he focused on he would call it sacred music, right? He went to like a divinity school and everything else. And when I was young, he was the guy our church tagged to go out because he was probably the best guy. It is a huge church. They were going to buy a pipe organ. And so he hauled me around the nation looking at pipe organs. And so he sort of learned out loud. And so he would say, this organ has this, and you can hear the bass pipes breathing. And that's how you know a pipe. So I learned because he was just kind of talking to himself out loud as he analyzed these pipe organs. And he loved the pipe organ, and he had all this music and everything. So I learned all about the pipe organ, and
Cool.
he wasn't the best dad, but I kind of stole his music from him, because he wouldn't like let me have it. And so I ended up stealing this. And so I have opera and all these other things because we had this contentious relationship. But I do have these things that I can bring to a musical conversation. And I know what you're talking about, where you have like I'm very much against the triumphant guitar solo. I hear that and I'm like, meh. That's kind of tropish to me, like what else can you do? How little can you play and impact this thing and bring that emotion in? How do you create tension with with a chord that is uncomfortable? But one of my favorite chords in all of pop music, and maybe you've heard this, but I bet you haven't. In Maneater from Daryl Hall's, Maneater song, there was a chord. I think it's the second time through the chorus. It's like he takes his change purse and he puts it on one of the keys on the keyboard and it goes, doo, and it stays the rest of the song. And it is
Oh my God, I gotta listen to that.
Yeah,
That's
once
cool.
you hear it, you never lose it again. It is so uncomfortable, and it's the perfect thing because you have this dangerous man-eater lady, and I'm like, oh my God! And once you discover that, you're like, that is why there's danger in that song. Because, and I swear to God, like I don't know how he plays that note the whole time. Like it's just literally someone just holds that
drone
key
or
down.
something.
And it's a drone note, and it just stays there. And once you find it, you're like, ooh, that is uncomfortable. And so when you find that thing, and I'll say one other thing, and then I'm gonna shut up. But I was at NAMM one time, and this young emerging guy, I had him on the show. He's like a songwriter and writes really like passionate, kind of sensual R&B kind of songs. And he's like in this container that they made like into a mobile studio. And he's this young guy getting his shot, and like you get to play for like like this half hour. And so you give him your attention, you're watching like while you're eating. And he had this drummer that they'd kind of like, here's your drummer. And so he's drummer. And so he doesn't really know, like they don't really know each other. And the drummer's playing. And then like you see the singer going for like the big finale to the song. And the drummer's like going to go with him. And the drummer grabs his sticks and pulls back and doesn't play a note. And he knew to eat those sticks and just sit back and let the singer finished that thing. And I was like, oh man, that was beautiful, because he could have played more out of ego,
Right.
but he didn't. He
Exactly.
just grabbed those sticks and put them in his lap and let the singer do it. And it was like I'd rather see that than, and I was like, that's what I look for, is how little can you do and get that emotional hit than, and sometimes you need to go over the top, and sometimes you need Dream On to just go for the moon. And
Right.
but I like the other end of it more, I think.
That's amazing. That brings me to, I did this show called Once. It was an Irish folk. Glenn Hansard wrote the music. Did the tour of it. They did a Broadway tour of it years ago. They did it on Broadway, and then they won a bunch of Tonys, and then they put it on the road. We actually went to the Pantages, I went I was an actor in the show. Glenn Hansard is one of my favorites for that reason of bringing you to the edge and then laying out. And apparently he started singing in the train station, and he would, because he has such a vibrant, like lion, ferocious voice. He would sing from one side of the train tracks to the other and try to hit the wall so it would come back at him for sound. And yeah, he does that, where he just lets it loose and then pulls back. The audience, almost like we're all in the front of our seats when we're not to bring it back to Crazy Mama, but I really not to bring it back, but I felt that at the reading. Like I felt like people in the front of their chairs, kind of like a Glenn Hansard concert, where it's like really listening in. And those are also the best too. My first show ever, my parents are kind of hippies. They brought me to Peter, Paul and Mary when I was like a baby. And just, I remember like there's pictures of me as a baby, just they were holding me up like Simba and the Lion King, like watching this place called Ravinia, which is like Tanglewood, but in the Midwest, and in the suburbs. And just like looking at them like, oh, harmonies, it's just the best. Yeah,
Ravinia is beautiful. Have you been to the Hollywood Bowl?
Oh my God, that's like the one spot I haven't been to yet.
You gotta go. It's so incredible. It's so incredible. This is for the audience. When you go to the Hollywood Bowl, they do all kinds of stuff. You might see Charo, you might see Hall & Oates, you might see Depeche Mode. You can see anybody, but sometimes they'll do like a symphonic play along with a movie. Like we saw Little Mermaid one time, and it just barely rained the whole show, and so it was like just lucky coincidence, but it just rained enough that you're like, if it rains any harder, I'm leaving. But it didn't, and so like it just was like
nice.
The perfect setting. But because it's Hollywood, they're like, tonight singing the part of Ariel is like Leah Remini, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
And and like all these incredible people come on stage to sing the part. Like, singing the part of the prince is Daryl Hall, and you're like, what? And so like, they just blow your mind with all these people that show up because it's Hollywood, and they're like, yeah, I'll come in and do that. And so it's
of course.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so it is. Ravinia is great. That is a great place to see a show. But then you see something at the Hollywood Bowl, and if they really like, when they knock it out of the park, and when they miss, it's still incredible. But that venue, that environment, when it goes great. I saw Chappelle there. It's just it is a great place to see a show. Yeah, if you come out, let's go see a show together there. Anything you see there is great, but it's just, man, it is a magical place. And again, people should go out and go see shows. Hollywood Bowl, wherever it is, go see live shows.
Yes, go see live shows. The Hollywood Bowl, and also like some of these little small venues, you walk in and you can see some people, even if you don't know who it is. I don't really know the spots in LA as much, but in New York, there's just so many spots you can walk into and you're like, holy shit, who are they? I've never, or they have no plays on Spotify, but they're just killing it, in the room.
Yeah.
So many good musicians.
Yeah. No, it's true. My cousins are actually in a band, and I don't want to unfairly characterize what they do, but it's like there's a performance of what they do, because they're beautiful. They're like 6 foot tall blonde models, and they do like this kind of like a gothic. They're goddesses, right? That's what they play. And they're twins, and so they like are very they turn themselves into a god, and they expect you to worship them. And they're kind of deconstructing religion when they do it, and it's techno all at the same time. So there's this sexual, sensual god techno thing that they do. Whoa. And and so because they're my cousins, I'm like, I have to have them not be my cousins when I go see them, because otherwise it gets uncomfortable, because like there's my cousin's asses in my face. But you're also watching them do this very incredible form of art. And so like, it's a lot going on, but I can't wait to go see them live. I just have to like be like I have to watch them like this, you know.
What's the name of the
And they're
group?
called Mother Mary Music on Instagram, and they're just really good. And then Sage Logan is another great young artist. She's a friend of our family as well, and she's fantastic. And there are a lot of young people, and it's always hard to break in. But like you said, like you have to get off of Instagram and you have to go see these young folks when they're live. And the filling the gig, filling the theater thing, like, hey, bring all your friends, you know, like go fill the theater, you know, buy the ticket and go see these young people so they can continue to go and do that career.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, showing up is half the. It's always whenever you go, it's worth it. It is a bummer though, like you said, if it doesn't end on a note that it was you know, there's some shows. There were a couple theater pieces I saw in New York that at the end, I'm like, oh man, you know, like that was a bummer. That was a bummer.
Yeah.
But overall, there's a lot of good stuff happening right now, for sure.
Sure. So this will be a truthful thing. We go see as much stuff as we can, and I'm lucky with being a veteran. I get to go see a lot of stuff through. There's a thing called vet ticks, and we get the tickets for ridiculously cheap, and so we use it. It's a wonderful thing, and I love it. So we get to see a lot of musicals. I love musicals, and when we went and we finally saw Hamilton, I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty good. But I've seen so many great musicals, like the bar is so high, you know, and so like, yeah, go see musicals. And where we were under the overhang, and so the sound was just bouncing everywhere. And I'm like, I cannot. Yeah. And so it was really hard to understand what was happening. And you know, it just was not the best place to see it. That was the biggest problem. Was it's hard enough to keep up with the flow, you know, and then the sound was just, it was a really bad mix, I guess, is the best way to. The theater was not capable of getting the sound back stuffed into where we were, and you know how that goes. Like it's hard to, in those old theaters, sometimes it's just really hard to get the sound to go evenly everywhere, you know.
Absolutely. And with that show, the music is it's like a rock concert. I mean, it's there, the lights and everything, and I can't imagine what it would be like with the bouncing of the sound.
Ooh. Yeah. So when you were getting work, you do a lot of things. Obviously, you act, you play, you've got bands and everything. What like if you were to have the phone ring and they're like, "Hey, we want you for this," like what would be like the moonshot for you? Like what gig would you want the most? Is it an acting gig? Is it playing live somewhere? Like, is it Carnegie Hall? Like what would just blow your mind?
It's a good question. I think what would blow my mind is if a tour bus pulled up my driveway and everyone from the band in there, and everything was mapped out, and the tour was mapped out, and we just went, and I didn't have to call people or do anything. Like people just be there, and that it was all set up, and that all I had to be was the songwriter instead of also the producer, the marketer, the figuring out the videos, figuring out who's coming to the show, figuring out the booking, figuring out the. So I've always kept it DIY because of trust and because of when you give the reins to too many people, which I've done before, it gets tricky. So it's nice to do it yourself. But that would be it. It's, you know, I love theater so much. I love being an actor, but there's nothing that makes me feel more in my zone than holding my guitar and singing with my band and playing in venues where we don't know anyone, but they have to know a song or they are connected somehow through not the band, but they saw me in a theater piece. So they're at the band concert and then they explore the music that we wrote. So yeah, that would be it. Definitely that tour picking us up and all of that, the route being open for us all, you know. And that's the thing too. It's like the venues now after the pandemic, it's just shifted. Things have changed, and a little bit trickier now because a lot of the bands that were filling these venues before because of the pandemic. Now they're filling these venues with bands that are already fully established. I mean, we have a good following in New York because all of our friends are here and are here. Play a show in New York and it'll fill up. But when we went on tour and we're like in Lexington, you know, or when we were in Ohio and we're in all these other spots, we were surprised. Milwaukee, there were a lot of people there. Chicago, of course, because that's where I'm from. But yeah, it's just, it would be nice to get picked up from that with that tour bus and not have to worry about numbers.
Yeah, it's, you know, we're talking about Sage. Sage is wonderful, and she makes such great music, and there's so much work, and you're investing your own money in production and all of the money that you have to pay for this service. You have to pay for that service. You have to pay for this and all these other things. And that's just to get your music to exist. And then you have to try to get on this person's playlist and this person's playlist and this person's thing. Okay, now I got to do Instagram and I got to make videos and I've got to spend my time editing that and I've got to release this and I got to release that. Oh, and by the way, I've got to try to. And you're the CEO and you're the marketing official and I got to take pictures. And all of a sudden, you spend 90% of your time not making damn music and spending all of your money on things that have nothing to do with creating music. And it is a lot of work, you know, trying to, and then someone's always telling you, hey, you know what you need to do? And like, stop putting stuff on my plate. Just here, go to my site and subscribe. Give me $5 a month. And then I can pay someone else to do some of this marketing for me, you know, so I can go put this guitar in my hand and go do what I do best, which is not, you know, take pictures of me playing the guitar, you know, like, and that's the biggest thing is folks got to understand, buy the shirt, buy the tickets, go to the shows and support these folks so they can do something besides worry about whatever it is, the t-shirt design. Please, I don't want to do that. I want to pay an artist to go do what they do and design a t-shirt for me so that I can go and sit on this bus, relax, and then write some songs, you know, and play these songs. That's the thing, right? Like we have to do 1,500 jobs. I want to take all these hats off my head and get rid of them and just go do what I do. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Which hat? Yeah, go ahead.
No, go for it.
No, you go.
Oh, no, I was gonna say we had a bang the other day, and because we're gearing up for this album, and our drummer Morgan, who's such a badass, she's an amazing drummer. She knows, talking about playing too much, she knows exactly when to play and exactly when to play too much and get back. And you know, they do this tiny desk every year, you know, where people submit for this tiny desk content. We've done it before, and you know, we're gearing up for this album, and Morgan said in the meeting, you know, why don't we, you know, submit for tiny desk too? And immediately internally I'm like, fuck this, I'm not doing this right now too. I don't want to. If we do it, it needs to be perfect. And so I started, she could see in my eyes, like I was like not feeling doing the tiny desk, you know, submission. There's other things going on. And I said, you know, Morgan, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know. It needs to be in the right room. It needs to be the right lighting. I want to start thinking about all this logistics. And Morgan looks at me and she's like, don't you want to just jam on a song and record it? You know what I mean? Like, it's not about winning the tiny desk submit. It's about being together, playing music, playing the song a couple times, recording it, not thinking about it, throwing it up on the submission, and then doing the next thing. Instead of harping on the perfectionism of the society that we live in, where everything needs to be perfect. And I really heard her moment that, you know, the only reason she wanted to submit was to just get us in the same room and play a song a couple times and record it and put it up and then move on to the next thing. So I just think it's a better perspective that way, you know?
Yeah. I think I told you when we met that Chris Thomas King is a blues musician, and he's a friend of mine now, you know, over the years and through the show and everything we've met, and he'll go out.
Yeah, I watched that episode. It's great.
Yeah. You can't be a better blues musician than him. And you know, it's like, does anybody care? He's this guy, he's amazing. And so he's like, I'm going to go write a bunch of songs and put them on YouTube. Crickets. You know, you're like, I know. What? Like, how is this real? You know, and then you see stuff that does well from musicians. Like, there's these guys, and I'm not trying to look, they're great. I wish them all the best, but I watch them play in the blues, and I'm like, can you guys slow down, play less notes, and just understand, like, yeah, you're prolific, and it's great, and you're doing a lot of really virtuoso, but slow down. Like, there's no even time for anybody to feel your music because you're doing so much stuff. but millions and millions and millions of views. Like they're doing great. So I'm going to shut up because you're doing it. But my man over here is the blues, and he plays it wonderfully. And just we can't reliably get him any attention, and it's a shame. And he is one of so many blues musicians who are stuck playing tiny little rooms, and it's like, how do we balance this out? How do we get people that need to get attention? Because Robert Cray should be crushing giant places because he's incredible, but it doesn't work like that, I guess.
Man, the question that you just said, how do we get people the attention that need the attention, is I think the through line of our conversation. I mean, I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. Like, how do we do that? And you do that. I mean, that's what you do, which I love. I mean, I feel like you bring attention to people who should be getting attention. And I think that's super cool. And I super appreciate that about your show and the work that you do.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I mean, and nothing against anybody. And I'm not taking a crack at anybody who's doing well. I want everybody to do well. But there's these people in plain sight. And some of these guys are old and they're not going to get another shot at it, And like you name any blues musician, and how many can you actually name before you run out of names? And that's a shame, because that's an American invention, and we should know like more of these cats that are out there doing it, and just anyhow.
Yeah.
Sure. Get off my soapbox.
No, I hear you. It's funny. It reminds me of a story when I was in high school. I haven't thought of this in a long time, but my best friend Micah, his dad Mark, who's an amazing guy, his whole family, like Micah was a brother to me, and Mark was like a second dad. He got this Fender Strat, and he was showing me it in his room. He knew I played it because I'd always play guitars. Whenever I was at anyone's house, I would be playing guitar and singing. And I was messing around with it and talking about the blues and talking about rock and roll that we're talking about. He would always show me these videos of Eric Clapton. So he was playing this, like an Eric Clapton, one of this, I think it was late something. And I started playing I was starting playing the riff on the electric guitar. And I'm playing it, and he kind of hears me, and he walks in the room, and he looks at me. I shit you not. He looks at me, and he's like, keep it. I'm like, are you serious? He's like, keep it. I want you to play that when you get older. I want you to do this.
Yeah.
Gave it to me on the spot. I was like, wait, are you serious? And I hugged him. It's in my house here in New York. And so now whenever I play, because I play a lot of acoustic shows, he'll call me or text me, and he'll be like, did you play the Fender Strat? Did you play the Fender Strat? Yeah, it's a good story. I just remembered that because of the blues and, inspiration and stuff. It's cool when people, do stuff like that.
And like that little thing, that unlocks something, right? That tells a kid like, hey, go forward, do it. Go grab it. Yeah. Well, I go back to my high school every year for fall and spring semester. And I talk to the seniors and then graduate. And it's just, like a whole day of like my buddies' classes. And, it's my high school. So I'm you from the future. What do you want to know? And whenever there's a musician, I'm like, don't stop. Like, even if it's just your hobby and it relieves the stress of what your regular life becomes, don't stop, because there's value in playing music. And if your parents tell you you can't make money, they're wrong. There's a lot of ways to make money in music. Just keep going, because you can do it. Is it supposed to be easy? No, but it's also a dream job. And sometimes you get to play every night in some incredible place and your dream comes true. It's not like rock god Def Leppard. It's, hey, I play in Las Vegas professionally, thousands and thousands of shows over my career, and I get to do this for a living, but great money, great benefits. And I just get to be a professional musician, which as a kid, you'd be like, hey, here's the deal, kid. You're going to live in Las Vegas. And you'd be like, I'll take that deal, And so, you don't quit. You keep playing and you figure it out. Maybe you write one song, maybe you don't. Maybe you write 1,000 songs, and who knows? But you don't quit. You just keep going.
Yeah, and also just like you never know when the thing might hit. I mean, we got a call to play at Bethel Woods. It's kind of cool, this thing with Crazy Mama, because when they said it's going to be at Bethel Woods, usually theater shows are not at Bethel Woods. I mean, it's the original Woodstock. It's like rock and roll concerts and like huge, it's not really a theater space. And last year, or the year before, I think it was last year, our band was asked to play at Bethel Woods for this emerging artists thing. We were the first band to be asked to do this, and it happened to be the same night The Who was there. And we were on a sister stage, and we played on the stage, and who played on the other stage. And Anson and Sharon happened to be at that show, and they saw our band.
Oh.
We didn't even realize it until later. And then because of our band playing at Bethel Woods, and then, you know, Bethel Woods realized that, you know, I'm in Crazy Mama. So just like that's a synchronicity right there, like a moment of bringing my two favorite things, theater and music and rock and roll and blues and everything to you know, the original Woodstock. It's such a cool space. And it's funny too, because we're performing in the museum area, which is just like we did at the Hollywood Museum. So there's a lot of history, and yeah, it's cool. It's a cool spot to be up here.
Yeah. Well, that's neat, man. I love it. I love what you're doing. I love that you get to create all this stuff. And yeah, just look, you don't need me to tell you to keep going because you're already doing that. But I just dig it, and I wish you continued success with all you're doing. And I hope that Crazy Mama gets picked up and you're sitting. Look, I mean, off Broadway is a legit chance. Like if this thing at all goes anywhere, that's where you're going, right? I mean, that's a legit thing, you know. And why not get one of those gigs for a couple of months, you know, a couple of years? Who knows, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Anything you want to say before we wrap it up?
Just thank you for, you know, taking the time to have me on your show. And I'm a big fan of what you do and all the energy you bring to artists that it. And yeah, if you're in New York, come see Crazy Mama in April. There's only 3 shows. And I'm sure the info is on the link right over here. And also check out our band, the Heartstrings Project. You can get us on Instagram and Spotify. And we're gearing up for a new record. And we have some shows coming up in New York. So figure that out. We might be coming over to the West Coast in the summer. So Pete, I'll let you know if we come. Maybe you can come to a show in
I would
California.
love to.
Out there. So yeah, we're going to try to come to the West Coast once this album is out. But yeah, check us out under the Heartstrings Project, and hope to do at Bethel Woods for Crazy Mama.
Yeah, I'm going to put the link for at least the Facebook page so you guys can get that real fast. It'll be here in the remarks in about 5 seconds here. And then I'm going to run the credits. But yeah, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. Everybody check that out right there on Facebook. Just type in Heartstrings Project. You guys can find that. All right, stand by. I'll say goodbye to you in a second. Let me just run these credits. We'll be out of here. Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by